by Crone. Have you ever wondered why some leaders just seem to be miles ahead of everyone else, despite having the same 24 hours in a day?
Well, Marcel Schwantes wrote about this, specifically focusing on Warren Buffett. He spends about 80% of his day reading, but the real secret is how he pairs that with just sitting and thinking.
Right, so he isn't just jumping from one meeting to the next. He actually carved out time to just sit there.
Exactly. He avoids making those impulse decisions. He and Charlie Munger wouldn't even look at other people's opinions. They'd gather the facts and then retreat to think.
It sounds almost impossible today with our phones buzzing every 2 seconds. Are there other big names who actually do this too?
Oh, definitely. Bill Gates used to go to a secret cabin in the Pacific Northwest for these think weeks. He'd just read papers from Microsoft employees and ponder future trends without any distractions.
A secret cabin, that's intense. I guess even Steve Jobs did something similar with his walking meetings, right?
Yeah, those walks were his version of reflection time to strategize. It really shows that taking a step back is what prevents burnout and actually clarifies your long-term vision.
It's a good reminder that doing less can actually lead to much better results. This AI playback is powered by Crone. If you could spend 5 or 6 hours every single day just reading, do you think it would actually make you a billionaire?
Well, Daniel Liberto actually looked into this, and for Warren Buffett, reading isn't just a hobby, it's his entire job. He says he reads 5 newspapers a day, plus a ton of annual reports and 10Ks.
5 daily newspapers? That's incredible. When does he even have time for business meetings?
The thing is, Berkshire Hathaway doesn't really do work meetings. Buffett and his late partner, Charlie Munger, focused almost entirely on thinking and reading instead of sitting in a boardroom.
Okay, so he's basically a professional student. But what is he actually gaining from all those pages?
He calls it compound knowledge. Just like interest on a bank account, the info you learn today builds up over years until you have this massive edge.
Right, that makes sense. Is there a specific book he credits for starting that engine?
Definitely. He's obsessed with The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. He first read it when he was 19 and still calls it the best investment book ever written.
He also reads a lot of biographies, right? I heard he bought an entire company just because of a book he read.
Exactly. He read First a Dream by Jim Clayton and ended up buying Clayton's manufactured housing business. He also loved Phil Knight's memoir, Shoe Dog.
It's a pretty powerful reminder that the best investment isn't always a stock. Payback is powered by Crone. Imagine spending 80% of your day just reading to hunt down facts.
It sounds like a lot, but Drake Baer, writing for Business Insider, says that is exactly how Warren Buffett operates. He looks for raw data instead of just following what everyone else thinks.
He has a huge list of favorites, but the one he calls the most lucky find is The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. He picked it up at 19 and says it gave him the actual logic for investing without needing a crazy high IQ.
Right, and he also points to security analysis, which Graham wrote too. It is basically his roadmap for figuring out what a company is really worth versus what the market says.
He also looks at the people running the show, like in Common Stocks and Uncommon Profits. Phil Fisher talks about how you have to look past the numbers and evaluate the actual management.
That connects to his praise for The Outsiders, which ranks CEOs who were masters at capital allocation. He even calls one of the leaders mentioned there the best manager he ever met.
He also loves Poor Charlie's Almanac by his partner, Charlie Munger. It really dive into those mental traps that cause investors to make mistakes.
There are some fun ones too, like Business Adventures, which he actually gave to Bill Gates. Plus, he recommends nuclear terrorism because he thinks it is vital to understand the bigger safety issues facing the country. It is quite a varied list of 18 essentials.
It really shows that being a great investor is about being a lifelong student. Payback is powered by Crone. Could you imagine sitting down and reading 500 pages of investment manuals and transcripts every single day?
Kathleen Elkins wrote about this, actually. It's the advice Warren Buffett gave a group of MBA students back in 2000.
Wait, did anyone actually listen to him? That sounds like a full-time job just on its own.
Well, Todd Combs did. He was in that class and really took it to heart. He even hit 1,000 pages a day early in his career.
1,000 pages? When did he even have time to breathe, let alone work?
Right. If he wasn't exercising or in a meeting, he was reading. Now he's an investment lieutenant at Berkshire Hathaway and might even become CEO one day.
I guess that's what Buffett meant when he compared knowledge to compound interest. It just builds up over time.
Exactly. Combs still reads for about 12 hours a day, looking at annual reports and trade magazines in an office that basically functions like a library.
It's a lot of discipline, but clearly it pays off if you're looking to avoid impulse decisions and really understand the market. Playback is powered by Crone. Have you ever wondered how someone like Warren Buffett actually spends his day-to-day?
Thomas Apong actually wrote about this, and it turns out Buffett spends about 80% of his time just reading and thinking. He avoids impulse decisions by sitting in his office and reading annual reports all day.
Wait, 80%? That seems like a massive amount of time to just sit with your thoughts.
It really is. He once said he reads about 500 pages every single day, which he compares to compound interest for the brain.
So it's not just about getting through the books, but how that knowledge builds up over years?
Exactly. And his partner, Charlie Munger, is the same way. He says he's never met a truly wise person who didn't read all the time.
It's interesting because we usually think of billionaires as constantly being in meetings or on calls.
Right, but they call themselves learning machines. The goal is to go to bed just a little bit wiser than when you woke up.
I guess that's the secret to the long haul. Instead of reacting to every market flicker, you're building a foundation that lasts forever.
That is the core of it. Taking that time to think keeps you from making those mistakes that interrupt your growth.
Maybe it's time to trade some of those meetings for a good book. Back is powered by Crone. Ever wonder if the investing strategies of a billionaire with $100 billion actually apply to someone just trying to make their savings last through retirement?
Well, James Brumley explored that by looking at some classic Warren Buffett wisdom. He notes that while Buffett can hold stocks forever, retirees have to be much more defensive since they're living on those savings rather than a paycheck.
Right. I mean, his first rule is famously never lose money. But that's a lot easier said than done, right?
It's critical because of the math. If $1 million portfolio drops 50%, it takes a 50% gain just to get back to $750,000, not the full million.
That's a huge gap. And he also mentions that excitement and expenses are enemies, which is interesting because retirees suddenly have all this free time to watch the ticker.
Exactly. It leads to trading out of boredom. Even if the trades look free, the market's short-term volatility often means you pay too much or sell for too little compared to a steady buy-and-hold approach.
Okay, but then there's the cash problem. A lot of people feel safe just sitting on cash, but he's not a fan of that either.
Right. Cash is a terrible long-term asset because it depreciates. Even with money market funds at 4%, it barely keeps up with inflation while you're trying to fund your lifestyle.
And then there's the debt side of things. You warned about interest rates being 20%, but I heard they're actually higher now.
They're averaging just under 30% now. When you're only making about 10% in the stock market, that credit card interest will just eat your retirement savings alive.
So it sounds like the best move is to keep the strategy pretty basic.
Definitely. Avoiding complex stuff like leveraged ETFs or options is key. Simpler strategies are just easier to manage when the market takes an unexpected turn.
It's all about making that stash last as long as possible. Playback is powered by Crone. Charlie Munger once said he didn't know a single wise person who didn't read all the time. And he really lived by that.
Absolutely. In Farnham Street, Shane Parrish highlights how Munger viewed himself as basically a book with legs. He had such a massive range, from physics to biographies.
He really did. One of the top ones he's mentioned is Faraday, Maxwell, and the electromagnetic field. It's wild because the authors aren't even physicists, but Munger called it a fabulous human achievement.
Right, and he also loved Ice Age for its science exposition. Then there's How the Scots Invented the Modern World, which covers how they basically birthed modern democracy and free markets.
He was also obsessed with how we think. He frequently pushed influence by Robert Cialdini, probably giving away more copies of that than any other book to help people understand persuasion.
He also found the selfish gene fascinating. It explores how competition and even altruism, like bees protecting a hive, are all driven by our genes.
And you can't forget the biographies. He studied titans like Rockefeller in the book Titan, and of course his all-time hero, Benjamin Franklin.
It's such a diverse list that really shows how a broad curiosity builds a better mental model of the world. Reading like Munger is definitely a lifelong project.
It really is. Picking up even one of these feels like a step toward that same kind of wisdom. Playback is powered by Crone. Could you imagine spending 6 hours every single day just sitting in your office reading?
That is exactly what Warren Buffett does. Kristen Hitchcock writes about how he treats reading like a full-time job to sharpen his business skills.
6 hours is a massive commitment. How much material does he actually get through in that time?
He aims for 500 pages a day. He says knowledge builds up like compound interest, growing exponentially the more you feed it.
Is he just buried in thick investing books, or is it more variety than that?
Oh, it is everything. 5 daily newspapers, magazines, and he reads annual financial reports cover to cover to get the primary facts himself.
It sounds like he has been doing this forever. Did he just pick this up as a billionaire?
Actually, he claims he had read every single book in the Omaha Public Library by the time he was 10 years old.
That is incredible. It really shows that self-education through quality reading is a lifelong edge. Playback is powered by Crone. Did you know Warren Buffett spends about 80% of his day just reading?
Yeah, it's wild. Marguerite Ward wrote about this, how he basically pores over newspapers every single morning and tells people they should aim for 500 pages a day.
500 pages. That sounds like a full-time job. Does he actually think it's the secret to his success?
He says knowledge builds up like compound interest. It helps him avoid those quick impulse decisions that trip up other business people.
Okay, but is there actual proof it works for anyone who isn't a billionaire investor?
Well, Steve Siebold interviewed 1,200 wealthy people and found they almost all share this habit. Tom Corley even found that 67% of rich people watch less than an hour of TV a day.
So less Netflix, more books. Does it actually change your brain, though?
Actually, yes. Brain scans of students reading thrillers showed more activity in areas for language and sensation. Plus, reading fiction is linked to higher empathy and emotional intelligence.
It's good to know there's a payoff beyond just getting smarter or richer.
Right. Research in the Journal of American Academy of Neurology shows it even slows down memory decline as you get older. It's basically a long-term investment in your own well-being.
Guess it's time to finally pick up that book on my nightstand. AI Playback is powered by Crone. Could reading actually be considered the world's best addiction?
Well, according to Caleb Naismith, that's exactly how Warren Buffett describes it. He spends about 80% of his workday just reading and thinking.
80%? That seems like a massive chunk of time for a CEO.
Right, but he views it as a way to build knowledge, like compound interest. He even tells people to aim for 500 pages a day if they want that competitive edge.
500 pages. I guess that's how he spots things others miss, like when he bought into Coca-Cola back in '88.
Exactly. Even after that new Coke mess, his research told him the brand was still solid. Same thing happened with American Express in the 60s during that financial scandal.
It sounds like it gives him a lot of confidence to go against the grain. Did he use the same logic for his recent move into Japan?
Yeah, he basically read his way into investing billions into 5 Japanese trading houses. He realized they were severely undervalued just by digging into the numbers.
It's a pretty convincing argument for picking up a book instead of just watching the ticker all day. Back is powered by Crone. If you had the chance to get investment advice from the third richest man on the planet, what do you think he'd tell you to buy first?
It's funny, Alex Woodhall actually writes about this. You'd expect stocks or gold, but Warren Buffett says the best asset is actually yourself.
Wait, really? That sounds a bit like a motivational poster. What does he actually mean by that in practical terms?
He's very specific. Talents can't be tasked or taken away, even if the dollar loses value or deficits run high. He mentions taking care of your body and mind like a car that has to last 40 years.
Right. Okay. I've heard he spends a massive amount of time just reading. Is that part of the strategy?
Exactly. He makes fewer impulse decisions because he's constantly learning. His partner, Charlie Munger, even said their record would be much worse if they'd stayed frozen with the knowledge they had years ago.
That's a lot of pressure to be on all the time. Does he have a take on the actual day-to-day grind?
He says picking a job just for a resume is like saving up sex for old age. You should take a job you love so much you jump out of bed.
That's a vivid image. What about the actual stock market? I know he has those famous rules about fear and greed.
Yeah, be greedy when others are fearful. He's all about rule number one, which is never lose money, and rule number two is just don't forget rule number one.
Keeping it simple. I like it. It's definitely a different way to look at wealth. Playback is powered by Crone. Ever wonder if reading all those books really is the only thing that made Warren Buffett the richest guy in the room?
Jeff Hayden actually digs into this. While Buffett says he just sits and reads all day, he also spent 4 hours straight picking the brain of Lorimer Davidson at Geico before putting in 75% of his money.
So it's not just solo study time. He's out there networking too.
Exactly. He connects with people like Tom Murphy to talk television stations or Jack Byrne about insurance. He basically attaches himself to every smart person he can find to help him learn.
Right, because reading only gets you so far. I've definitely felt like an expert after a quick search, then realized I know nothing when I actually try to do it.
There's a study in the Journal of Experimental Psychology about that. People who used Google to answer questions like, what is gluten actually overrated? How much they understood other topics because they confused having access to info with actually knowing it.
That's that illusion of explanatory depth. It's like how a 10-minute call to a cousin who knows construction is worth more than hours of reading about clearing land.
Precisely. Reading makes you smarter, but it's those relationships that actually make you wiser and richer.
Good reminder to reach out to the experts in our lives instead of just staring at a screen. Playback is powered by Crone. Do you ever feel like we're just spinning our wheels between Zoom calls and never actually stop to think?
Right. Marcel Schwantes actually wrote about this. He notes how Warren Buffett spends up to 6 hours a day just reading and sitting in his office to think.
6 hours? That sounds impossible in most businesses. He really just sits there?
He does. He calls it uncommon in American business, but says it helps him avoid the impulse decisions most people make.
I mean, so if he's reading that much, what's actually on his nightstand? I'd love to know what shaped that mindset.
Well, his top pick is The Intelligent Investor. He read the first edition back in 1950 when he was only 19 and still calls it the best book on investing ever written.
19 is pretty young to find your life's manual. Did he have any even earlier influences?
Actually, yes. At age 7, he found an obscure book in his school library called 1,000 Ways to Make $1,000. He says that's what really jump-started his career.
That's a classic title. Are there any more modern books that give us a peek into how he operates today?
Schwantes mentions Tap Dancing to Work by Carol Loomis. It's a collection of insights into his strategies and even includes an FA from his close friend, Bill Gates.
It sounds like his whole success is built on just being more deliberate than everyone else.
Exactly. It's about exercising the mind as your most important asset. By taking that quiet time, he creates a framework for making better decisions.
I guess it's time to block out some calendar space for actual thinking. Playback is powered by Crone. Do you ever wonder if billionaire success comes down to some secret shortcut, or if it's actually something any of us could do?
According to Ali Montag, it is much simpler than a secret. Mark Cuban and Warren Buffett both say their competitive edge is just reading.
Reading? That sounds too simple. How much time are we talking about here, like a book a month?
Oh, way more. Cuban reads for over 3 hours every day, and Buffett spends 5 or 6 hours just sitting and thinking through what he's read.
6 hours? What is he even looking at for that long?
Well, he goes through 6 newspapers daily, including the Wall Street Journal and American Banker. He even told students to aim for 500 pages a day.
500 pages is like a full-time job. Why does he think that's the magic number?
He describes knowledge like compound interest. It builds up over time, but he's noted that even though anyone can do it, most people just won't.
Right. It's about the discipline. So they're basically just out studying everyone else, using stuff that's already public?
Exactly. Cuban mentioned reading the PC-DOS manual back in the day just to get a leg up on more experienced guys. He loves that the playing field is level if you just put in the work.
It's a great reminder that the best investment is usually just your own time. Playback is powered by Crone. Recent shifts in the stock market have many investors feeling anxious as prices dip near correction territory.
Ryan Ermey highlights that during these times, legendary investor Warren Buffett suggests looking to literature for guidance. Specifically, Buffett points to Rudyard Kipling's poem, If, which emphasizes the importance of keeping your head while others are losing theirs.
It is a poetic way to look at finance, but how does that translate into a practical strategy when the S&P 500 is down significantly?
The core idea is to maintain emotional control. Historical data shows that market corrections are standard. There have been 21 declines of 10% or more since 1980. Buffett notes that while we cannot predict when the light turns from green to red, we should view these downturns as opportunities rather than threats.
So instead of pulling back, the suggestion is actually to stay the course?
Precisely. The average bear market since 1928 has lasted less than 10 months. In the context of a decades-long investment plan, that is a short window. Continuing to invest during a decline allows you to buy stocks at a discount. Buffett famously said that when it is raining gold, you should reach for a bucket, not a thimble.
Treating a market dip like a sale on assets requires a lot of discipline.
It does. Ignoring sensational headlines and sticking to a diversified, long-term plan is what builds wealth over time. By focusing on the ultimate goal rather than immediate volatility, investors can effectively turn a stressful period into a strategic advantage.
A steady hand and a long-term perspective seem to be the most valuable assets in any portfolio. Playback is powered by Crone. Warren Buffett is finally planning to step down as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway later this year, and it really feels like the end of an era.
Yeah, Business Insider's Ethel Jang and Kenneth Niemeyer just went through his most legendary wisdom. It's wild that a guy worth nearly $200 billion still swears by a $5 dinner.
He's always been about those simple truths. Like his famous rule number 1 is just don't lose money, and rule number 2 is basically just go back and read rule number 1.
Exactly. He also has that classic beach analogy about not knowing who's been swimming naked until the tide goes out, is his way of saying market drops reveal who is actually prepared.
And he's big on the long game. He says you should only buy a stock if you'd be totally fine holding it, even if the market shut down for 10 years.
It's not just money stuff either. He talks about how it takes 20 years to build a reputation, but only 5 minutes to ruin it. So he chooses his associates very carefully.
I love his take on success, too. He says the really successful people are the ones who say no to almost everything so they can focus on what actually matters.
It's definitely a unique perspective that served him well for 94 years.
For sure. Whether you're into stocks or just looking for life advice, there's a lot to learn from that kind of consistency. Playback is powered by Crone. Do you think you actually need a college degree to make it big in business, or is the whole university system kind of overrated?
Well, according to Emmy Martin, Warren Buffett isn't convinced it's for everyone. He's famously said that the absolute best education you can get is investing in yourself, which doesn't always involve a classroom.
Right, and I heard he and Charlie Munger actually scoffed at the idea of starting their own business school. Munger mentioned that even though they find wise people, nobody has figured out a way to teach wisdom to everyone.
Exactly. Instead of formal schooling, Buffett is a huge reader. He spends like 5 or 6 hours every single day poring over books and newspapers.
5 hours? That's intense. I guess that's what he meant when he told students to read 500 pages a day, saying knowledge builds up like compound interest.
It really does. He also thinks we should study real-world wins, like Rose Bunkin. She started Nebraska Furniture Mart with just $500 in 1937 and never spent a single day in school.
And she turned that into the biggest furniture store in the country. It's wild that Buffett says top business schools don't even spend a page studying successes like hers.
Yeah, he basically joked that professors with doctorates would be better off hanging around her furniture mart. It's all about learning from the best people you see around you.
It definitely gives you a different perspective on how to actually gain expertise. Playback is powered by Crone. Ever wonder why a guy worth over $100 billion still lives in a relatively modest house? I was looking into Daniel Feininger's piece on Warren Buffett, and his whole approach to wealth is just, it's not what you'd expect from a mogul.
Exactly. He's big on the idea that Price is just what you pay, but value is what you actually get. Like, he points out that even on Amazon, prices for the same thing can flip every 10 minutes, so you have to ignore the noise and look at the long-term worth.
Right. And he's surprisingly blunt about credit cards. He basically said if he had to borrow money at 18 or 20% interest, he'd be broke, which is wild to hear from the head of Berkshire Hathaway.
He really considers cash to be king. Since the average credit card rate is now over 24%, he's adamant that you shouldn't use them at all unless you can pay the balance in full every single month.
It sounds like he treats his brain like a portfolio, too. He's always talking about how knowledge builds up like compound interest. He supposedly spends most of his day just reading and thinking to avoid making impulsive choices.
He does. He says any investment in yourself pays back tenfold because, unlike a stock gain, nobody can tax your knowledge. It stays with you no matter what the market does.
Okay, so what about his actual strategy? For someone so successful, I expected some secret formula. But his advice for most people, it's actually pretty simple.
It's incredibly simple. He recommends putting 90% of your money into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund and the other 10% in short-term government bonds. He even warned that paying a 1% management fee can quietly wreck your retirement over time.
So it's really about the long game, like planting a tree for shade years down the road. It's refreshing to hear that getting ahead is more about patience and discipline than some high-speed trading trick. Playback is powered by Crone. You'd think being the second richest person on the planet would mean private chefs and gold-plated tech, right? But Warren Buffett is actually the total opposite.
Exactly. CNBC's Kathleen Elkins wrote about his eccentricities, and it's wild. He's actually stayed in the same house in Omaha since 1958.
Which he bought for about $31,000 back then. And his breakfast routine is just as consistent. He hits McDonald's every single morning on his way to work.
He never spends more than $3.17 on it. If he's feeling less prosperous, he'll just get the 2 sausage patties for $2.61.
Or Oreos, if McDonald's isn't an option. Then there's the soda. He drinks at least 5 Cokes a day because he says 6-year-olds have the lowest death rate. So he eats like 1.
Just strategy, I guess. He also doesn't even have a computer on his desk and has only sent 1 email in his entire life.
He just reads and thinks for about 6 hours a day instead. He even has old newspaper front pages of economic crashes on his walls as instructive art.
He really sticks to his rules about not losing money. He even used coupons to buy Bill Gates lunch once.
It just shows that being a billionaire doesn't mean you have to stop looking for a good deal. Playback is powered by Crone. You'd think being the third richest guy on the planet would mean private chefs and gold-plated everything, but Warren Buffett actually lives like a regular guy.
Exactly. Kathleen Elkins wrote for CNBC about his incredibly frugal quirks, and it is just fascinating. For starters, he's still living in the same house in Omaha he bought way back in 1958.
He paid about $31,000 for it. To give you some perspective, the house right across the street from him is listed for over $2 million these days.
He even had a license plate on his old Lincoln that just said "Breasty." And his breakfast routine is even more surprising because he never spends more than $3.17 at McDonald's.
It's usually a sausage biscuit or a bacon, egg, and cheese. If he can't get to a McDonald's, he's been known to just eat Oreos for breakfast.
He also drinks at least 5 Cokes a day. He jokes that since 6-year-olds have the lowest death rate, eating like a 6-year-old is the safest bet for him.
His office is just as low-tech. There isn't even a computer or a phone on his desk, and he's only ever sent 1 email in his entire life.
He spends 6 hours a day just reading and thinking to avoid making impulsive decisions. He even hangs old newspaper clippings of economic crashes on his walls as instructive art to stay grounded.
It really shows that staying true to your habits, no matter how much you have, is a key part of his success. Playback is powered by Crone. Did you know Warren Buffett spends about 80% of his day just reading?
Business Insider and Drake Bear highlight that perfectly. He's always looking for facts rather than opinions, starting with classics like Business Adventures by John Brooks, which is actually his favorite.
It's fascinating how he looks at the long game. Take John Bogle, The Clash of the Cultures, where he talks about ignoring the herd and letting time do the work through compound interest.
And he's big on management, too. He recommends The Outsiders by William Thorndike and Jack Welch's memoir to see how great leaders actually handle capital and energy.
He even suggests reading his own collection of essays. It gives you a direct look at his folksy but sharp intellectual style.
For the tough times, he points to Tim Gaither's stress test. It's a rare first-hand look at managing a government through a massive economic crash.
Then you have Philip Fisher's Common Stocks and Uncommon Profits. It moves beyond just numbers to show how important a company's management really is.
But the top two are definitely Benjamin Graham's books, Security Analysis and The Intelligent Investor. Buffett says those provided the actual roadmap and emotional discipline he's used for over 50 years.
It really shows that successful investing is more about having a sound framework and keeping your head clear than just having a high IQ. Payback is powered by Crone. How on earth does someone like Warren Buffett stay so sharp while reading 500 pages every single day?
It is quite a routine. Kareem Patil actually looked into this, and apparently he starts with a massive pile of newspapers and magazines before diving into company reports.
500 pages. I would just forget it all by Tuesday. Does he actually retain any of that?
He treats it like an investment. He blocks out specific time just to think and digest, which helps his knowledge compound over time just like his money.
Right, but there's so much noise out there. How does he decide what is worth that mental effort?
He looks for info with a long half-life. He ignores the expiring stuff like tweets or flashy news and focuses on things that change slowly, like political history or business fundamentals.
Expiring information, that is a great way to put it. How do you even spot the junk?
If it is marketed to you or lacks any real nuance, it is likely expiring. Most news tells you what happened, but Buffett wants to know the why and the conditions behind it.
It makes sense. If time is the only thing he can't buy, he might as well spend it on things that actually last. Payback is powered by Crone. Do you think having a fancy degree is really the golden ticket to success we've been told it is?
Well, according to Ali Montag's look at Warren Buffett, it's definitely not. He literally says he doesn't care where a person went to school when he's hiring or buying a business.
That is a bit surprising coming from a guy who went to Wharton and Columbia. Did he actually enjoy his time in grad school?
He admits Columbia changed his life, but he didn't even want to go to college at first. He tried to quit Wharton after a year to start a business, but his dad, Howard Buffett, made him stay.
So he's not saying education is useless, just that it's not the only way. I mean, none of his 3 kids even finished college, right?
Right. He thinks the best investment is in yourself, which could mean taking a Dale Carnegie course for public speaking like he did to beat his fears.
Okay, so if it's not the classroom, what's his secret? Is it just reading nonstop?
Pretty much. He suggests reading 500 pages of reports and papers every single day. He says knowledge builds up like compound interest, but you have to sit and think about it too.
It sounds like he values the curiosity more than the paper. It's funny he doesn't even know where his diplomas are.
Exactly, they aren't on his wall. He thinks an MBA is only useful if you actually find subjects like accounting fun, rather than just a requirement to check off.
So basically, focus on the skills and the curiosity, and let the degree take a back seat.